And welcome to this very special edition of the Real Sharks podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the Creepshow franchise, starting with Creepshow in 1982. That's right. Originally, Creepshow was a collaboration of 5 short stories told by some of the most terrifying and best storytellers around, George A. Romero and Stephen King. It was produced by Richard P. Rubinson. How Creepshow starts out with little Billy sitting in his house in which his dad is punishing him for reading the Creepshow comic book and basically smacks him around. Little Billy says, hey, you know, it's not as bad as those naked magazines you have in your drawer. And of course, the father smacks him and the kid basically says, I hope you burn in hell. And we start off the show with the ghoul from Creepshow. Yes. I don't know, would you call him a Grim Reaper or what would you call him? Just the Creepshow...
The Creepshow ghoul, yeah. Some sort of
Grim Reaper.
Zombie.
And he takes us into the world of Creepshow. But let's go and get started with the first one, which is Father's Day. So Father's Day centers around a family who is basically kind of getting ready for a reunion. And who's the famous guy in there? The guy from freaking Enemy at the Gates.
Ed Harris.
Ed Harris is in there. That's right. Ed Harris from Enemy at the Gates is in this too.
Yeah, good hair. Great 80s dancing.
Yes, he is.
Dancing?
I don't want to sound weird, but he is sexy in that.
Yeah, he's got like a full head of hair.
I know. Yeah.
Like, who is that? Oh, Ed Harris.
Yeah,
he's a very chiseled man. The hair adds to him.
Yeah. So you had Ed Harris in there dancing, doing his '80s style, and basically it centers around basically their aunt who comes to visit every so often, or a reunion of Father's Day, to place basically flowers upon the gravestone of her dead father. And during this, they tell the story of where the Aunt Bedelia was basically stuck in a moment where she killed her father, and thus, after placing the flowers and everything on the headstone, the man of the house comes back, I should say, and wants his Father's Day cake. And he goes on a killing spree throughout the whole short story, and ends up getting his Father's Day cake in the end. So what did you guys all think of this one? I guess I'll go first. I personally freaking love this one. It's George A. Romero's spin. But not only that, it's a very calm George A. Romero. And by that, I mean the cinematography of it is a lot different. It's a lot different than his old work. I mean, if you watch all the other movies he's done, there's a lot of quick shots. Things don't really stay in frame for too long. He doesn't focus on too much things at one time. But this one is almost like a drama. Until it gets to the actual horror aspect of it, it doesn't really get comic booky and George Romero-ish, I should say.
I feel like it does in the coloring. The coloring is very comic booky. And it has those frames.
Yeah, no, till the end do you really get that kind of, George A. Romero.
Lots of reds and blues going on.
Yeah.
When he comes, when the...
But that's also the style of the Creepshow, because, as it starts out with Billy, he's reading a comic book.
Yeah.
So that kind of fits into the whole atmosphere of the whole show.
And then the stylistic shots, at the end, where the Father Day actually, rips off the woman's head, and he's with his cake, they have, that stylistic shot of their reaction. So, screaming, comic book, old style, so it's pretty cool, in reds and blues.
Yeah, that's the whole movie. The whole movie is being carried by George A. Romero's direction all the way through. His coloring, his shots, his use of this pulp imagery to kind of raise up a very
different. I feel from a lot of his other work. You look at the Crazies. The Crazies is very dull, very boring. That's one where the shot literally will remain in one scene for minutes. It seems like. But then you have Dawn of the Dead, where things don't stay put for very long at all. Only in certain drama aspects does that really happen with his style. And I really thought that's what this movie really did. Actually, he changed some of the style, too, as the films kind of progress. Each story has its own different kind of visual style to it.
And when Ed Harris dies, you could move away!
He couldn't move away. He was scared.
Yeah, that's the comic book.
He was frightened. He was so scared he couldn't move.
I know.
And then the zombie used his telekinetic powers and moved that gravestone upon the poor Ed Harris.
Or the Force.
And killed his young career.
No rules to this movie or this short story.
No.
Just no rules whatsoever.
I think the Tombstone Crush just kind of like chopped his hair off, and then he came back as like the Harris.
That was the end of Ed Harris's young career right there, and his hair. What was the next story on there?
So the next story was the lonesome death of Jordy Verrill, which is the Stephen King short where it stars Stephen King,
where he turns into a plant monster. For those of you who have never seen Creepshow, this is the one where Jordy gets a meteor that crashes right outside of his house, and in his infinite wisdom decides to touch hot meteor and gets a gooey substance on him. Now, he wants to sell the meteor, thinking it's going to bring him a fortune
of $200.
Yeah.
Hey, that was a lot.
These flashbacks in this episode is one of the most funniest ones. He's just like,
I get it from a local college, and then it just says like local.
He's
college.
like, how does $5 sound? He's like,
200.
He's like, Mama didn't raise no fool. Keep a counting.
275.
That's
200.
That's a good one. I love the flashbacks. But even though it is Stephen King, eventually he sees that he breaks the meteor, and he's just like, I gotta give you nothing in a flashback for a meteor, even though a meteor is a meteor. But he decides to go in and run his routinely day, watching wrestling, having a beer. Then he starts to realize this green substance on his skin. Uh-oh. He's basically becoming Swamp Thing. But not in a very prestigious way. More like in this plant matter is taking over your body and going to kill you once it consumes your whole entire soul.
Like a free grass.
Yeah, like he's not going to be a Swamp Thing man monster. He's just going to get like absorbed into the grass or so. That's kind of what it seems like.
That's what it was looking like at towards the end.
One of the funnier stories, I love how he's all like, oh, God, freaking out, and he, first of all, he turns the tub on, then he goes and gets, orange juice and then vodka.
I love that part.
And he just starts drinking himself to death
and
almost.
His dad pops up and is like, the water, it pumps the water, George.
It's the water, Daddy?
He's like, Daddy, I'm already dead.
Yeah. That's a really messed up scene. That's a very, after that, the whole the brilliance of this short is, it's comedic value through and through, you know what I mean, from Stephen King's performance. But when he gets the weird vision from his vision of his dad, when the dad's like, oh, if you get into the tub, that's what's gonna make it spread, and he's like, oh, I'm already dead. You're like, oh, that was kind of not funny.
Not to mention the end. If you listen to the news broadcaster, he's like, hey, there's some green.
Yeah, there's some green.
Yeah.
And then how does it end?
The highway
30, it's going to be 30 days of rain.
30 days of rain.
The green is coming.
The green. And it says something like, it's going to be full of green and so much more for these farmers to handle or something. But how does it end for good old Jordy Verrill there, Rob?
He takes a shotgun to the face, and the shotgun wins.
Unfortunately, Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Every time I see that, I do think of Nirvana. That's
just
really
please,
weird.
God. Do you think that's what happened? Kurt Cobain was being consumed by plant matter, and he's like, I can't do Nirvana no more. I have to end it all.
You don't know.
You don't know. So
if you look at the plants as a metaphor for substance abuse, it kind of works.
I guess it kind of does if you think about it.
Kurt Cobain confirmed he was being consumed by plants.
Interestingly enough, though, what I like about this story too is the fact that it is comedic. Because it is a very rehashed story that has been done over and over. The story of the guy becoming the creature, obviously the Fly. Not to mention all those 1950s movies like The Beast Within, where somebody is basically turning into some creature like he's the sun monster, or these old 1950s movies, he's the walking oak plant man and stuff like that. So it was a good twist, I thought, on there, because usually the guys that are the monsters back in the day were intelligent, guys who didn't want to be the monster, almost like the Hulk, and so that was kind of like a part of the story that was sad, is that, oh, they don't want to be the monster. This one is you don't have a choice. You're just basically going to get consumed by this thing. It's going to kill you.
And then, you just kill yourself in the end because there's no stopping it. It just, basically took it all the way over.
Yep. He was already dead.
Yeah. So the next one we have is Something to Tide You Over.
Oh, God.
Starring one.
You're going to hear me keep saying this. One of my favorite ones.
Yeah. Surprisingly, this stars two... one surprising actor and one upcoming actor, and Ted Danson. before Cheers, and surprisingly, Liam Neeson as becoming the villain with Richard Vickers. He's like a wealthy, powerful man. He's got like a wife, and Ted Danson's like this young, I guess like understudy. They don't really get into it.
Yeah.
With
He's
it,
like
I think
dating his woman or his daughter. I thought it was his daughter.
it's his wife. It's his wife. Yeah, it's his wife, and he's like an understudy of Liam Neeson. He turned his back on him and slept with his wife. He found out about it. So what does he do? He invites Ted Danson over and
at gunpoint.
Yeah, at gunpoint.
But then he takes him hostage at gunpoint.
Yeah,
no, first he tells him that he has Rebecca hostage and she wanted her to be safe to come with me. And then once he brings him to the beach, he holds him up at gunpoint.
Yeah, and then he's just like, now dig that hole.
No,
and then
so you get into the hole.
Yeah, buries him in the sand.
Buries him up, yeah.
Gives him a big lesson about. Well, first of all, he wins the bet, and then basically shows him the screen of Rebecca being basically taken by the tide, a couple yards down, and you hear the big iconic saying of.
Depends on how long you keep it cool, how long you hold your breath, you see, Harry.
How long can you hold your breath, Harry? The tide comes in, you just before it comes back out, and catch that one last gasp again. It's like, it's about how long you can hold your breath. It's about how long. I love that part.
That's a great scene because when he's doing it, it was actually like touching Ted Danson's like chin a little bit.
Yeah, they were really in the surf doing that scene, which is great.
Which was really, really good.
One of the things that catch me on, and I got to pause it at this moment, is the technology gap that is in this episode is great, because he is dragging miles of cable cord in the back of a car, and like he has a camera on him with TV screens. It's like, nowadays you can just do that from your phone, from your phone.
He's got a VCR, some other device, a television, and a camera, and it's like, well, now that would just be like 2 phones.
Two phones.
How hilarious was it that he actually had like a stand and a television, old CRT, like in the sand, like kind of talking to him in his beach house, like, hey, how's that water doing? And then like Ted Danson does like this, like take towards the camera when he's looking right at it.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. So continuing on, after he returns to his humble abode on the beach, nice house, I must say. That's one of the other things that always catches me. I was like, God damn, that's a brilliant, nice house. I don't normally say that about movies, but it's like, jeez, he has a nice house. so returning to said humble abode, he, does his daily routine, only to find that there is a puff of smoke entering his house. And it's the ghost of the 2 people who he buried in the sand, and they want to see how long he can hold his breath. And of course he's like, pulls out the gun, shoots them both in the head. Oh, they don't die. I'm going to run in the other room, lock the door, turn around. Uh-oh, they're still in there. Next thing you know, his head is in the sand, and he's just laughing his ass off. He's like, I can hold my breath for a long time. That tide rolls up, and he's like, in those eyes.
And that's the end shot right there, which is another comic book shot that they had, where he kind of ends with the water on his face. And also the stylistic shots of like the monsters, the light, blue light, the blue and red light again effect, and how they looked, because like when Rob was saying, when he was like shooting them, wasn't like water. And
they were just like green. They didn't look like zombies. They looked like people that had been like soaked in salt water
for like years. They were very puffy. They looked like they.
When he shot him, it was just that black ooze that just comes out of her head. I like this one. I think it's a great, of course it's a moral story about, karma. Karma's the biggest bitch.
This whole thing seems to be like, whether you're good or bad, you're going to get screwed in the end.
Yeah. But overall, I think the setup and the presentation of this one is good. I think it's one of the best ones because of the presentation, because you see the whole, you start doing that with him as he's like, how long can you hold your breath? And when he's just, you start doing that too as you're watching it. You're just
thinking like that can actually work. Like that would be terrifying right there. And Leslie Nelson, by the way, just like people just think of him, oh, that guy from Naked Gun. Like, no, he actually was an effective villain in this. Like, he was very just like. You were like, God, he's a ruthless dude to do something like that. Not only to the guy he hates, but to do it to your wife too. Like, dang, dude.
Ultimate revenge, man.
Wow.
And he was filming it the whole time too.
Like videotapes.
Doing it for his TikTok.
I wondered that at the end when he's looking through all of the videotapes before the monster came out. Like, are any of these people he's already drowned? Has he done this before?
It looked like he has. He had a process.
Yeah, he had the whole thing set up. So, like, business deals go wrong. He just snatches the guy, and he's like, "How long can you hold your breath?"
That's sick.
Goes back out. We gonna get that deal now?
Yeah. But, when I was watching this one, it kind of made me think back to another movie that John Carpenter did, The Fog.
Yeah. Yeah, the monster is kind of that's very, very, very true. They do use the fog effect like that to present the monsters, and they kind of did that in this episode for a little bit. I think it was to basically make sure it wasn't distinctful. It was distinctful from zombies.
Yeah.
They weren't supposed to be zombies.
Were they? They were not zombies.
I don't think they were. They didn't seem like zombies to me. They seemed like
creatures.
They seemed like ghouls.
Yeah, yeah, kind of did actually.
Vengeful ghouls.
Vengeful ghouls.
It's kind of like a little homage to the fog. So I really liked it for that bit. But I mean, when you shot him, I thought it was like seawater that was.
Yeah, it was seawater. It was black.
Yeah, it was
seawater.
like black seawater that was supposed to be like, I don't know, innards kind of turning black. But on the next story that we have in this movie is by far a lot of people's favorite story out of the whole franchise of the Creepshow, which is The Crate.
The Crate. So this is the story of Dexter and his wife Billy, who is, of course, very annoying and very mean to him, to the point of where he just hates his life, hates his wife.
He's a cuckold and she's a shrew.
Basically. To put,
he's like fantasized killing her and stuff.
But that's not where the story starts. The story actually starts in a college with a janitor who discovers a crate underneath the stairs. And it says, "From the Himalayas." That's right. Which, I think is weird, because I think it's weird. Even if there was something in this crate, why would you be like, the only solution, guys, is to bury this thing underneath the stairs in the college? Like, who thought of that?
Like, underneath, like, an open staircase,
yes,
too.
I mean, it was like... basement? I mean, of course the janitor found it. It was only a matter of time before someone found it, or maybe that was the setup.
Yeah.
Maybe that was. Who knows? But anyway, the janitor finds a crate and calls the professor down there. They both crack open this crate. He looks in it, thinks there's a bunch of emeralds. Bada bing, bada boom.
Yes.
It ain't emeralds in this thing. Yeah. It's a freaking... I don't know if you want to call it mini Yeti, if you want to call it... I don't know what it is.
Werewolf
but
Yeti?
It is horrifying looking. Dude, it eats this guy's brains, basically.
Oh, God.
Just
first.
Yes, and then eats his head.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, eats it. Like, and you see it.
In the professor's terror, he runs, of course, to his colleague, Dexter, who he always plays chess with, and I believe that's what they were doing. They're actually going to have their weekly chess game.
Yes.
Yeah.
And basically, he tells them, there's been a murder at the college.
Right.
And he's like, really? And of course, in his intrigue, he goes and finds basically the crate, finds all the mess, but then he thinks to himself, maybe I can use this to my advantage. So what does he do? He basically forms a ruse where he tells his wife that basically the professor has beat up some young college girl and basically almost borderline raped her, and she's hiding, and she needs a woman-to-woman conversation to get her out of the stairwell. And of course, being Billy, the way she is, she goes in there, doesn't see anything at first, then starts to really berate him, and as she's berating him, I think the monster actually was just like, oh hell, dude, I'm gonna kill this girl for you too. Yes, I think that was the joke of it too, right? Because he was like, why isn't it eating her? Why isn't it eating her? And he even like shoves her in there, like, yeah,
he does. Like,
he starts screaming and being like, come get her, come get her.
I thought he actually killed her, like, after they stopped. I mean, oh shit.
That would be a good twist if that was the twist of it, was that he did murder her.
The twist. And then all of a sudden the
kind of murders her.
And then the creature comes out and eats her. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. But
that was a great scare too, by the way, because you're expecting it to happen right away, and then like he pushes and screams. You're like, is he gonna come out? And then boom!
I think it was literally because Billy was very annoying. I think that's why.
I think so.
I think that was the whole joke. Yeah. And then of course, he puts the creature in a box, and it's calm because it's full. He even says, I think it's because it's eaten. I mean, God, he only killed like 3 people. I'm pretty sure should be full by then.
Oh yeah.
And then puts it in his truck, takes it to what looks like a coal mining quarry,
quarry,
and then dumps it in the water. And then right as the crate is heading down to the depths, cracks open. Creature opens its eyes again.
Yeah, that was the luring of the eyes. this story was like this one kind of like messed me up as a kid.
Yeah, this one was when I first saw Creepshow. This was the one I didn't want to watch.
Yeah,
it was scary as hell.
Like, oh my god,
that one scared me.
This was insane, but also was just more insane. Like, he just gets away with murder in the end. He's just like talking to the professor, like, listen, there's no evidence.
There is no real moral to the story. It is, hey, if you have an opportunity to kill your wife, hey, go ahead.
Go ahead. Hey, go to your local university.
But
check
make sure she gets eaten. Yeah. Make sure you hide the body.
If you have a creature that can eat your wife, then go ahead and feed her to it.
But overall, it is it's one of the better creature stories that you've ever really. I mean, it creates a lot of intrigue where you want to know more about a story, but in hindsight, there doesn't need to be more to it because it would probably kill it. Because it says from the Himalayas and all this stuff.
In the 1800s,
and you're like, you're like, what?
1873.
It's just really unique. You're like, what's the story behind that?
So this thing has been living for like you said, Rob, like for thousands of years.
Under the stairs.
And not only that, under the stairs, but why was it there? Like, did someone place it there for a reason?
It creates a lot more questions than answers, but it's such a good, intriguing story. It's a fun one.
Definitely.
And that's what Creepshow really is. It's fun.
Yes.
That's what it's meant to be.
Yes.
I actually like this one because of Hal Halbrook. He played the husband, and I never thought he'd do a horror movie before, and then I saw it, and man, I kind of feel bad for him. And when he starts visualizing his wife's death, when he shot her, he actually did. I'm like,
and everyone starts, everyone, hey, Billy!
Yeah. And then they all start cheering.
Yeah. Thank you. We all wish that.
He goes like nothing at all and just shoots her right now.
We all wish for those moments one way or the other, don't we? Anyway.
So finally, our last story of the first Creepshow would be another infamous one, right, Rob? They're creeping up on you.
I like this one because it's funny. It's more funny than scary.
It's kind of messed up, too, though.
It's not for anyone who has a phobia of bugs. So if you have a phobia of bugs, this one is definitely going to terrify you. Basically the story of a rich billionaire man who's a germaphobe, basically, living in a high penthouse suite in New York. I mean, everything is, clean to the max until he sees cockroaches everywhere. Cockroaches are everywhere in his apartment, and he starts getting furious. He gets these calls, too, which is funny because he actually sprays one of the cockroaches. And I guess it's supposed to symbolize the queen roach or whatever. I always thought it was that, but he gets a phone call when it's like, my Harry just walked in the door and his eyes were blood red from your stench or whatever.
Yeah.
I hope you die. I hope you burn in hell.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, is this you? Like, I forget their name. And he's like, yes, I did fire him. And he's just totally mean about it.
Mean, just disgusting human being.
Yes, and so the whole time he's having a roach infestation in his apartment. I mean, he is the most vile person, calling the building manager who's on vacation, telling him that he better come back, otherwise he'll never ever be able to have any kind of job. One of the most funniest yet racist things in the entire history of movies is when he calls the maintenance guy who happens to be black, and they're having this conversation at the door, which is like some kind of like magnified
weird thing.
Like it's like a microphone too. It's weird, intercom, and basically he's like, "No, Mr. Brown, I don't think you're crazy at all."
Oh no, sir, Mr. Pratt, sir. I don't think you is crazy, not at all.
He's like, because people like you, people of color.
He's like, yeah,
your kind, they do well in the service industry business. He's like, I hope you get my meaning. I knows what you mean.
Yeah, and then like when he's saying it, Rob, like you said, like the little eye hole thing is like a microphone and like a magnifying thing. So like you just see his mouth doing it when he's exaggerating words. So it's just weird.
He's like, I think the O'Reilly brothers are up. I can have them around here like 4:30.
11:30.
11:30. Yeah. God, I mean, and basically what ends up happening is keeps getting that phone call from that woman. Yes. Who's like, I hope you fucking die. And basically, the roaches start to infest his apartment to the point of where it's in his food. It's in his, basically in his computer screen, in every single facet of his house until they start literally pouring through the goddamn roof. Next thing you know, you see him laying on the floor with the maintenance guy saying, are you in there?
Yeah, are you in there?
You see squirt, 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 and all these roaches just start coming out of his body.
God, one of the most visceral scenes in this entire film. Just, the crazy thing about this is, just picture an apartment that is entirely white.
Yes.
Like his
with
furniture,
roaches, like a sea of roaches.
The sea of roaches. So like everything white, the floor, the walls, the door, his furniture, everything is completely white and just cockroaches. And by the way, George A. Romero has said that those are real cockroaches.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is the 80s. There's no CGI. They actually had to have real cockroaches.
That was a lot of cockroaches.
A lot of them, dude. And they are huge.
Yes. So, and this is where we actually get to the end of the movie, where little Billy is actually, they're at breakfast. They're at little Billy's house, and all of a sudden his father is talking. All of a sudden, little Billy has a voodoo doll in his room that he got off the cover of Creepshow, because you can buy things apparently off this magazine too,
like a real comic.
Yeah, and he is stabbing his father with a voodoo doll and giving him a heart attack, saying, "This will teach you to never throw away my things."
Okay, I didn't get to see the last segment or the end, and so when the Leslie Nielsen segment's about to start, for a second on the screen, it's the voodoo doll, and then the page turns and it's the something about the tides or whatever. Yep. So I wondered if that ever came back, if that was a payoff for anything later.
Yeah, that was the payoff where he's stabbing him like you said, like a voodoo doll.
It's a voodoo doll, yeah.
Like something,
it
right?
Says like real life, buy a real life voodoo doll, yeah.
Buy a real life. So he's stabbing him, and when he's doing it, when he's stabbing him, you see the final red and blue like stylistic shots of like him and his dad getting stabbed. So it's just another eerie scene.
Hey Arizona, if you live in the West Valley and don't want to travel all the way downtown or to Tempe for cool retro clothing and products, then check out our friends over at Ivory House. With online reviews saying affordable prices, quality pizzas, and nice owners, how could you beat that? Located at 650 North Estrella Parkway, Suite A4, Goodyear, Arizona, 85338.
Hello, potential listeners. My name is The Vern, and I'm the host of the Cinema Recall podcast. On most shows, myself, along with some great guests, we will talk about a movie and then some of the most iconic moments that happened in said movie. On top of that, you'll get bonus shows where I will give you short reviews about new and classic movies, or I'll just rant and rave about something going on in the entertainment industry. So come check us out. We're available on Anchor, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, most other places. Don't forget to follow us on social media. On Twitter, we're at cinema_recall. And then on Facebook, Instagram, we are Cinema Recall Podcast. Don't forget to email us your ad spots to play on future episodes. That email is cinemarecall@gmail.com. Hope to see you around, and thank you very much for listening.
So this brings us to the second movie, which starts out with little Billy. Apparently, this isn't obviously the same little Billy. I don't know if it's supposed to be or not. It's a completely different child actor. But he's waiting for the Creepshow comic. And here we have basically the Creepshow ghoul, who is no longer the Grim Reaper or a skeleton. He's just looks like a
goblin,
like a goblin-looking man with a long nose. And he tells him, "Yeah, we got him in," basically, and gives him the comic. And we get to the first story, which is called Old Chief Woodhead. This one's funny, and for those of you who have never seen the second one, hey, I don't blame you. The second one is, for fans, if you really like the first one, I recommend this one.
Yes,
so it starts out with basically some shop owners who are on the reservation, who basically are good people, good-natured Christian people, I guess you can say, and they take care of the tribes on there. And basically, they're losing money because the tribe is not giving them money for the goods that they have and everything. So then all of a sudden, the chief from the tribe comes in and says, "Hey, this is all we can pay you." They give him some jewelry,
$10,000 worth, and he says, "If we cannot pay you in 2 autumns, you can keep the jewelry."
Yeah.
That's like the direct quote. It's so ridiculous.
Yes.
2 autumns.
Yeah, 2 autumns. That's how this guy measures time.
As the buffalo roll.
Which is funny. It's like that guy gave him that guy
So
cash.
stereotypical.
Yeah, and he's like, here's this like native thing. It's like,
I mean,
okay,
he might as well
cash.
just and I'm not trying to be mean, but it is a very stereotypical story. He might as well have just hopped in there going, "Hey, how are you?
Oh,
Hey, how are you?"
He basically does. He
Yeah.
essentially does.
Yes, he does go how, actually, I think.
Yeah, yeah, he does.
I think he does.
He does to the actual.
He does to the chief, and
Yeah, chief.
basically the wooden chief stands outside the shop in the story. And so he basically guards the shop, and also I should mention, too, the store owner, as the story is progressing and starting, he even is trying to paint the chief's war makeup. War paint, trying to touch up his war paint. All of a sudden, another guy comes in from the tribe, and he's not a nice guy.
Yeah, he's
and
their nephew.
He's their nephew, and basically he wants all the rock candy, as he says, for himself, because he's going to Hollywood to be a
Played by
star.
a very, very white man.
Yeah.
Played by, what's his name, Holt McElhenney or whatever. He's in Fight Club.
Yeah.
He's in, what's the David Fincher crime drama show on Netflix?
Oh, God, I don't know.
I can't think of the name right now. But
Whatever.
he's in that as well, yeah.
But yeah, I think his little monologue in that is really funny, especially when he gets in the booth and he starts taking the pictures for a second. I think that's really, really funny.
Yeah.
He's like, they're going to look at this hair and be like, God, you got nice hair.
Yeah, he says like he's been growing his hair for 9 years.
Yep. Hey, I know, okay? I can tell where he was going to be a star, okay?
Yeah, that long hair. Him.
Luscious hair, like myself.
How about his friends? One of them named Andy, the other one named Fat Stuff.
A rich boy in Fatso.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, two cliche sidekicks. I mean,
Literally named Fatso.
Literally named Fatso. But as they leave, they kill the shop owners. The elderly lady and the elderly man.
The most anticlimactic death ever.
Yes.
Like, the shotgun accidentally goes off.
Yeah, that's what I was.
It's so unclear. Yeah, it's so unclear as if it accidentally goes off.
He looks like.
Does that matter to the chief? I don't think so.
No. Either way, he kills the man on purpose. But he shoots the lady, and like no one, he doesn't react. The lady doesn't react. She gets like the tiniest bit of blood on her.
That was hilarious. She doesn't even react. She got blasted with a shotgun close range. She's just like, what happened?
And it's like she's got like 3 drops of blood on her, and then it cuts to her husband and cuts back, and then they put like 10 drops of blood on her.
Yeah, they did. It was weird editing right there.
But as they speed off, the chief comes alive. And he's out for revenge.
Yeah.
He frowns.
He like frowns.
And there was no trash on the ground. He literally, legitimately frowns at the loss of the
There was
shop
no
owner.
trash, but there were human bodies. He like paints his face, I believe, too. He completes his face painting with
completes
blood,
face
right?
paint, or is
No,
it
it's
blood?
the paint. It's the paint?
It's
Okay.
the paint.
I thought it was
first. And then he gets off. And what's interesting about this episode, too, is this story is it's a real guy. You can tell this is a real guy, probably one of those the living statues. They probably got a guy who did a living statue. Yeah.
He did a good job.
Yeah, he did. But you can tell there's some subtle parts where he's like standing there, and you can tell he's like moving, just like slightly. You're like, that man's breathing a little bit.
He must be breathing because the chief himself, like when he puts the war paint on, he yells out like loud.
Oh yeah,
he's like, woo!
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
And then he goes on his killing spree. First, he kills, I believe it's Fatso.
Yes, it's Fatso.
Yeah, with freaking arrows to the body.
To the body.
I mean, straight up, like almost like a drive-by Indian style, just unloads arrows in him.
What is that fat guy doing in Hollywood, anyways? Did he really think he was gonna make it?
He's like a sidekick, stupid sidekick, gonna carry his stuff problem.
The native character tells him that you're my slave. You have to come with me to Hollywood.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he's forced to go.
Yeah, it's kind of like Squid. He's forced to do this show. He's chained to this table to do this show. Anyway, don't look at me like that. You are forced here.
So the next victim of the
next
chief
victim was the rich guy.
Yeah, Andy, the rich guy.
Yeah. How does he die? I don't really recall. I mean, doesn't he just get like chopped? Yeah. No. It's in the garage. He's in his garage, and all of a sudden you see the shadow of the chief, and just starts hacking him with the hatchet.
He breaks all the windows on his car.
And he destroys the car, yeah.
One of the greatest scenes, too, is when he finally meets the final bad guy, is when he's like, you're not real, and he just busts in that door like Terminator. It looks so cheesy.
It really does.
It's just a wooden guy. He's like, I mean,
And then he moves at like half a mile per hour.
Yes. It's like, what do you want to do? How do you get away? Run from him.
Walk at a mild pace, and you're
zigzag. Zigzag from the arrows. Though.
Yeah, but know what's
the arrows. You gotta watch out for those.
I mean, you're zigzagging through the arrows, but like the Chief has some teleportation things going on because like when Sam's cornering himself, Chief just comes through like T-1000.
Yeah.
Just grabs him right through the wall, grabs him by his hair.
He breaks through it. He just
breaks through it.
Right through that thing.
Yep, grabs his hair.
Got the nice.
He scalps him.
Yeah, which cut off some good meat.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, I was like, you knew it was gonna come because he was talking about his hair.
For those of you who want to know what scalping's like, we'll have Tom Cruise tell you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Imagine someone who hates you with the utmost intensity, grabbing a handful of your hair while you're lying prostrate and helpless, and scraping a dull blade of a rusty knife around your scalp with a saw-like motion. And let your imagination grasp, if you can, Mr. Graham, the effect of a strong, quick jerk on the turf of your hair to release any clinging particles would have on your nervous system. And you'll have some idea of how it feels to be scalped. Mr. Graham?
Yeah, it would kind of be like that.
Oh, good lord, yeah.
So
good old-fashioned Stephen King racism in these two movies.
Yeah, you gotta have that in there.
So what was the next story on the second one?
Oh wait, can I say that my favorite line in that last segment was the Native American nephew says, "There ain't no dust in Hollywood." And I was like, "It's a fucking desert."
Ain't no different, man.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
Ain't no dust in Hollywood.
The next story was The Raft. Four college students, Derek, Laverne, Randy, and Rachel, go swimming in a desolate lake far from civilization.
And I'll take it from here, Squid. And then they see what looks like a trash bag on the top of a pond. And said trash bag starts to glide over to them. It looks alive.
Yeah, and they're like, what?
And there is a scene where there's a duck. And this duck's just ducking away until no more duck.
No more duck.
Should have been warning one.
Yeah.
I mean, Randy was concerned. He swam faster.
Yeah, and that thing got to them real quick. But then it pulls up next to them, and it's just basically a big circle of glob of glue. It looks like a trash bag.
Yeah.
And basically, they're sitting there like the horrible college students they are, smoking the reefer.
I like that the nerdy girl, she was established as the nerdy girl in the car because she turns the joint down, but the second they get on the raft, she takes the joint, and I was
She's
like,
a bad girl now.
Yeah, there are no archetypes here. There are no characters. We're going with it.
But we got all the stereotypes here.
Pressure, man, come on.
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure.
Squid knows he does this show.
Damn, you are just like killing
I'm on fire tonight. Anyway.
But unfortunately for her, right? She's the first victim of this.
She is. She's putting in the Mary Jane into the goo, and hey, I guess it didn't like the puff on that pass. So
no, it didn't.
Basically, reaches in, pulls her in. And they're like, "What happened? What happened?" She comes out covered in the goo, and you can just see her skin melting off. And she's like, "It hurts. It hurts." It's like, yeah, no shit, it hurts. It's melting your flesh off, obviously.
Which is a really sick scene because at first it's kind of like you're like, what's going on with
traumatizing
this?
there.
And then like it shoots out like some tentacles that go in her skin. Like that was some pretty good effects. It goes in the skin and then like in her face too, and then
pulls her right in.
But
man.
like Rob said, the actress ruins it. It hurts. It hurts.
All of the actors in that particular segment are terrible.
Yes, they are.
All bad.
She might have just said, "They're killing me."
So of course, the big jock guy's like, "I'm gonna go for it. I'm fast, and I can make it." Then all of a sudden, whoosh, and that thing just reaches up through the fucking boards of the raft and takes his leg. But the way it tracks him in is brutal. I mean, it pulls him in leg first, where his leg is up in his head and pulls his ass in. Like he's dead before he hit the water.
And then it breaks the logic of the rest of that segment because they're like, well, just don't stand on the cracks and you'll be fine. And you're like, but it just broke the boards. It went completely through that thing.
Why does it matter? He's like, why? Why does it matter? Why does it have to physically touch you to like break through things? As we'll know at the end. So of course, the two, which was the jock guy's girlfriend and the nerdy girl's boyfriend, are on the raft. They sit out there for a while. They have to fall asleep because, of course, no one's coming for them. And then
They're watching the oil tarp, whatever it is.
Yeah, and then out of nowhere on the next day, in the dead of morning, guy decides to take advantage of the situation and lay this girl down like he's laying her down by the fire and begins to basically cop a feel and molest her. Next thing you know, she's like screaming his name because she has this thing on her fucking face. And of course, drags her in. He jumps to go swimming. This thing ate that girl fast because she was a skeleton in no time. And of course, it chases after him. He goes all the way to the shore. On shore, he's like, I made it. I beat you. Then the tide came in and drug his ass right back out. Hand to sign that says no swimming, covered up by leaves and shit.
Which makes me think, again, another kind of subliminal thing, like, did people know about this thing and they put that up there like no swimming because this damn thing's in the...
Well,
100%, yeah.
It's just more or less like, don't be a fucking idiot. Don't do things. It's like, you know, learn your surroundings before you do something. That's
like
why I take
guy.
that story.
Because, like, he beat the thing. Like, he could have just, like, got up and ran away.
Well, his cockiness is what got him killed, though. Because he's like, I beat you. I beat you. I would have kept running from that water.
Right? Like, car.
Yeah, get in the car. Run to the car, exactly.
Which is it's going to lure more people, because it was like you hear the top rock and roll kind of playing.
Yeah, that one song that plays through the whole thing for like 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now back to alright.
Yeah, every time they come back to the car, that song's playing. And you're like, how's the battery still alive? Why did you leave your car running when you went in there?
Didn't you guys? Not one of you guys said, "Hey, Mom, we're going to the lake today." Not one of you said anything.
It was 50 miles from wherever they live. That's how long their drive was. So, like, I don't know how out of civilization it was, but that's a long drive.
That's a long drive, and someone put up that damn sign.
50 miles, really?
Yeah.
Do you think 50 miles is long? I mean, it's 25 miles to, you know, our main city. I mean, 50 miles, I mean, that's you know...
50 miles into straight woods, though.
Yeah, this is true.
With no cell phones and back in the 80s.
Well, that's their fault. That sounded like a personal problem.
With a random lake, with a random lake, with a random alien squid thing.
With a
ocean monster.
Yeah, an oil tarp or some sort of thing.
So, like, after this sub-story, we have kind of like an interlude, kind of. We have, like, this little story within a story, because then...
Oh, little Billy's being bullied by the bullies, much like our Billy on staff here was.
Yeah, but it's like a cartoon version.
Yeah, it's terrible.
They did the cartoons at the beginning, like they started live action and then they go to cartoon.
Yeah, but why go to cartoon when they had the live action people there, you know? Why go to the live action anyway when you actually had the Creepshow guy and the little kid there? And the Creepshow dude looked scary as the freaking delivery man.
I don't know. They did something weird. I think that because George A. Romero wasn't doing the interludes anymore, it was directed by another director, and he was just doing the screenplays. He wanted to go with more of like a full-on comic book, and he thought, well, let's go like cartoony.
I would say it's near the end, because you can't do the end live action. That's way too expensive.
Yeah,
See, that's where they lost me at the end, and we'll get to that in a second. So the next story happened to be... Oh, but in the interlude, basically, little Billy's being bullied.
Yeah, he gets bullied. And orders something from...
Little Billy is getting bullied.
Little Billy's getting bullied.
And basically, he's leading the bullies off to some unknown destination. And, of course, the Creepshow guy jumps in and is like, Little Billy's having trouble. Let's go to our next story.
They had crushed something of his. Like, he had ordered something, right?
Venus flytrap.
Yeah, Venus flytrap.
And they, like, step on it or something like that. So the next story is another infamous one, The Hitchhiker.
This one actually is my least favorite of all the Creepshows. It really is. Yeah, it's another Stephen King one. Stephen King is actually the cop in this one. This one, though, is very interesting because it's about a woman who's basically sleeping with her lawyer in the middle of a divorce.
No, she's sleeping with a prostitute.
Gigolo.
Yeah. Oh, is she really?
Yeah, because he's like, that guy was like making himself known. He's like, my services are good. I'm good.
Oh,
like,
you're gonna pay me 6 times.
I guess I missed that part.
The lawyer was actually her husband. She said, I have the best lawyer. It's my husband. Which I'm like, well, then why are you cheating on him and putting yourself in a position to need him to go against you in court if he's so good?
Jeez, I missed that mark.
The woman is Lois Childs, guys, by the way. We're talking about legendary Bond girl from James Bond's Moonraker, which was a weird thing, but she's in here. and she's cheating on her wife, right, Rob? And then she's driving home. She's kind of like looking in the mirror.
Her husband, yeah, and then all of a sudden she hits a African American hitchhiker.
Which, yeah, Stephen King's character does emphasize that you hit a black guy.
Black guy.
Unnecessary.
Yeah. Was it?
Not Stephen King.
Because Stephen King, he's like, he's better than anything.
Steve was outraged the most during this.
Yeah. He was like, well, I wasn't really outraged. It's just, here comes Stephen King. He's making a cameo, and he's just hamming it up just to ham it up. This was when he was at his full cokeness. Because he comes out, he's like, you smashed that guy to smithereens. Oh, he's dead.
So, before we continue on, so basically what ends up happening is this woman hits a hitchhiker, and she's trying to drive to get home, and all of a sudden she keeps seeing hitchhiker on the road, on the car, everywhere you can imagine, and he's going, thanks for the ride, lady! I know, I do it real good. Steve loves it. Because I do it pretty well.
Thanks for the ride, lady.
Thanks for the ride, lady.
Okay, do it.
So, this whole time she's being chased by this phantom hitchhiker. This phantom ghoul. Hitchhiking ghoul. And, long story short, she gets all the way home, and there's a part, though, where she actually does get him off the car, and she just tries to just turn him into soup.
Yeah.
Immediately runs him over.
I mean, she destroys her car in the process of trying to, like, run this guy down.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's a metaphor for society, Mike. You know, you never know.
I assumed it was a metaphor for guilt by the end of it.
It was, because in the end, basically, she gets into the garage, and he's like, thanks for the ride, lady. He's not even a fucking person.
I don't know what
he's like a skeletal
burnt barbecue.
Like a skeletal burnt.
But he's got like a tongue. His tongue is out.
Yeah.
And then like it gets really weird because like she parks in her garage.
Yeah. Right. Doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do anything, and then like he just pops out of nowhere and just like slobbers on her face.
Yeah, and then the garage shuts.
Yeah, and it fills with smoke, assuming that she choked to death.
She choked to death because on the on the exhaustion.
You know, what if the true ending of that one was she just had to turn around and say, "You're welcome."
You were a hitchhiker. Your life wasn't going anywhere.
I mean, what if that was the twist, right? That's how I would have wrote it. This is like, hey, when Rise is getting ready, she's like, welcome. He's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. Because he's saying thanks for the ride, like, you gave me a ride. Like,
collects his tongue, collects all his pieces and organs, and just continues on his way. He's like, you got... And then he turns around and goes, you got tree fitting?
If there was anything clever to the film, they would have done that.
I don't know, because was he trying to kill her? Like, there's points where he was, like, grabbing in the sunroof, and she's, like, crushing his hand.
I'm pretty sure this phantom ghoul was trying to kill the woman that just killed him.
Okay, because he's just, like, at one point, he's just, like, looking at her, like, when, like Rob was saying, turning her to a soup, he's just like, thanks for the ride. Thanks for the ride. She's just smashing his face in.
So... yeah, that was that one, and was that the last story for that one?
So that was the last one, and then we end the Creepshow with the interlude for Billy and the bullies,
where Billy takes the bullies to a what looks like a grove almost,
kind of
to a dead end.
Yeah, and they basically start to get ready to beat his ass. Well, stereotypical bully you've ever seen too: leather pants, leather gloves,
big coiffed hair, super fat.
Yeah,
he's got like spikes on, so he's like some punk rock.
Yeah. You can tell he's the bad boy.
He's like Fat Danzig.
He's the bad boy. Because he ain't free falling. Anyway. So, of course, as he's getting ready to kill little Billy, what's that? Oh, my God. Some gigantic animated Venus flytraps come and eat the bullies and eat his freaking spur boots. Well, sorry, spits out the spur boots.
Yeah.
Credits. And then that was Creepshow too.
Yeah, and then you see the animated creep again, kind of going like, well, that's the end of our story.
Yeah, the live action creep then like throws the Creepshow newspaper and
everywhere.
General mail. It seemed like random pieces of paper out of the truck.
Almost like that Shamrock Farms Halloween thing, just trying to bring chaos to the world. So let's just throw this comic book everywhere. You know?
Kind of.
That's what I kind of got from it too. He was just trying to bring the end of the world by throwing the Creepshow comic book everywhere.
Because they know like it's gonna go to kids, and who's gonna believe kids?
And kids are gonna order things off it and kill their fathers with voodoo dolls.
Such an ineffective goblin man.
Right. This is how he spreads his message.
Yeah, he's like a little demon, and he's just like, I'm just going to be a postman.
I'm going to run this like type of tabloid magazine. That's just about stories.
He's got some little fanzine that he writes and edits and publishes himself.
Yeah, this kid is probably one of the only ones.
Yeah.
I love that. That's hilarious. He's his own like UPS dude.
It's a little Creepshow goblin startup.
Hey, that's how scary things start, man. Very goosebumpy. Very goosebumpy.
Yeah.
Actually, I would have to say, even though this came first, you can see probably where R.L. Stine got a lot of the inspirations for some of these silly, tropes in his books.
I can actually see that.
But that's actually going to be Creepshow 2, and we're going to go ahead and move on to the third one when we see it. All right. End of that.
I would not. That's fine. If you want me to blast you that, I can. But
no, that's all good. I want to watch.
Before we move on, my listeners, let me ask you, do you have any old clothing you think might be valuable? A concert shirt? Maybe an Elvis shirt you've outgrown? Or maybe a Star Wars shirt you just want to sell? Then make sure to give our friends over at Ivory House a call at 623-203-5568. They specialize in retro products and clothing and will make you an offer. Again, that's Ivory House, 623-203-5568. Tell them Real Shark sent you.
Hello! Check out our podcast, Grand Rapidians Play Video Games.
Every episode we review a beer,
talk about games we play,
and recommend a podcast or something else.
I'm Willie. I'm not your normal beer snob. I've been to more than 150 different breweries, but I always keep hams in the fridge.
I'm Ginger, and I am in the first Guinness World Record Book video game edition on the Tetris page.
I'm Simon, and I can usually kick their butt in most video games.
We drink while we record.
Fuck yes, we do.
Find us wherever you find podcasts, and enjoy.
Creepshow 3. We finally have gotten to it, and I'm going to just tell you all, my listeners, don't really even bother to look for this one. I mean, I'm not even going to give you any of the general information for this, because it might as well just be a YouTube movie, because it was pretty bad. I mean, nothing like the original Creepshows, except in, I guess, a soulless, void with the essence of what Creepshow used to be. Imagine your professor in high school somehow got the rights for Creepshow, and then he was like, for a school project, we're going to make a movie. That's what this was.
Definitely that first short, or the first segment. The first segment, I was watching it and I was just like, what is this? This is terrible.
Yeah.
The hook is that she finds a remote that switches her to different universes?
No, it's her dad who buys the remote off a street vendor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
who happened to be the professor?
Yeah, the remote is from the professor, which ties into...
This is the first story, ladies and gentlemen.
The first one, yeah. But, like, they transfer universes, and they say the same dialogue. Like, they go she goes from her regular white family to a black family to a Mexican family. And all three have the same exact dialogue, and I was like, wow, this is crazy lazy.
Well, that's so funny that you said that, because, God, that's exactly what I was going to say, too, is, like, the stories were so lazy.
They were
very, very lazy, so predictable in that essence. And yeah, I mean, when I was watching it too, I was like, oh man, the same dialogue over and over and over, that's just lazy. And then, you know, what else I didn't understand too was just the whole, when she first started mutating, I was like, why is this happening at first?
Yeah.
Because she just all of a sudden turned into like a burn victim, you know, just like...
inconsistent burn victim. She's like extra burnt the first time you see it, and then they cut to another scene and she's like less burnt, or it's slightly less gross looking. There's less blood involved and stuff.
It was just odd, and I just couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on this whole time. I was like, well, I knew what was happening. I was like, oh, she's getting, you know, I guessed it right away. Of course, I mean, it was so stereotypical and lazy. It was like, oh, she's getting stuck and fried in between dimensions, but then it got just to the whole point of when it got better, and all of a sudden his dad's like, oh look, I got the remote, no! And then she turned into a bowl of human soup, so to speak. I mean, that was, I mean, not even in the special effects department was that even cool. It even looked lazy too. So it was terrible, and for those of you who don't know, I guess we're getting away from the story part of it because it was so bad, but basically said girl's dad finds a remote, puts her through these parallel dimensions. She's going through all these dimensions. For some reason, it's like frying her skin off or whatever, almost like the bag in the pond from Creepshow 2.
It's changing her to her...
Oh, true form, that's right. Because the professor was like, this is your true form, and now you're a bunny rabbit in the end.
Which didn't make any sense.
Made no sense.
Yeah.
And then even lazier, he was like, they're like, what's its name? And he's like, it's she, and it's Ashley. Alice, sorry, Alice. And then the girls are like, Alice, what a pretty name, and grabs her husband, gives him the look like, ooh, we're gonna make babies.
Oh, yeah.
God, I mean, that was just awful.
That whole first segment was pretty painful.
It was painful.
It was.
I mean, we're not even talking about the cartoon where it was like so stereotypical of a little kid basically kidnapping a dog, and then all of a sudden everyone's lining up for hot dogs. It was so lazy. I thought that was lazy too. I was like, oh.
Yeah, that cartoon. When I started watching it, that cartoon at the beginning was so poorly animated that I thought I was watching a fake movie.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah,
I thought I was watching a fake movie.
You guys sent me like some weird YouTube like high school project or something.
Yeah, totally. I know. I thought Squid fooled me for a second. I was like, what the? Why did he send me this?
This is Squid's Creepshow 3.
Yeah, this is his Creepshow 3. He's like, trust me, guys. He was hoping for like a good review, so like, you know, people would tune into it.
On that note, then I would have to say that I actually overall I started to enjoy the movie after the first story. The first one was pretty bad, but after that, they started to actually get better.
Well, the second one was called The Radio. And
that one was dumb, because I've seen, oh god, it's called Galaxy of Horrors, I believe? And it's like a mini-series just like this. And they have and it's been done in Black Mirror, too. There's an episode where their phones basically take over, and the phone is basically telling you what to do. Like, the phone has essentially become like a sentient being. It is, like, at first it's helping a person, and then all of a sudden it, like, turns its back and gets them killed. That was the story, and I was, like, totally not... I was put off by it, because I was like, I've seen this story, like, I don't know how many times in a horror flick. So, it was still enjoyable, just because this guy bought a radio off a bum. I thought that was I thought that was funny. I'm like, he's just gonna buy this radio off this bum. That's hilarious. And then did the bum freak out after he bought it? Like,
yes, a little bit.
Yeah, like he was like, "Where's my radio?" And
Which confused me. I was like, I swear he just gave you money for that. It was a fair transaction. Why
fair transaction.
Yeah, and then at the end where it's the pimp that has the second radio that was on the vendor. I mean, who would have thought that?
That was but even I saw that coming too when he's just like, don't trust that girl too, and all of a sudden she blew his head off. I mean, who did not see that coming?
I was laughing.
She like comes back from the bathroom, walks to the passenger side where there's just a gun on the floor of the passenger side of the car, picks up the gun, shoots him through the chest, and I was like, wow, like broad daylight in the middle of a field, no hesitation, she just goes for it.
No, one of the other things about that short that really bothered me is how lazy the set was. I don't know if you guys caught this like I did. Yeah. I always catch like really lazy sets. For example, when he's in his so-called, apartment, and they go up to and he goes up to his room. Did you notice there was only spray paint on that one section of the ceiling?
I did.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, there was only, and it would look like it was done with marker.
Oh wow.
It looked like it was only done with marker. Not to mention when he gets inside of his place, you can tell it's like a suburban type apartment. It's not anything ghetto at all. And later on, when she's actually helping him clean up, she's like, "See, I told you cleaning up this place would make it look nice." I was like, "It looked nice before that."
But it was because of all the dishes and just him not taking out the trash. Like,
oh God, yeah.
Gosh, that was such a big deal breaker.
But it was that I just didn't care for that one. What was the next one too?
The next one was called Call Girl.
Oh, what was that one about again?
Weird twist.
Yeah, this one did. All right, so kind of the story with this one is there's a murderous call girl that's in the same apartment complex as the second story where the security guy lived.
Yeah, the guy who ends up winning the second story, the pimp. You see him pimping in this third story.
Yeah, you see him pimping out, and you see.
Yeah, I checked out here.
Yeah, you really should, because this one was kind of like the downfall to this movie. She murders a client. She gets a phone call from this like college age student, and she's getting ready to go meet him, and guess what?
He's a virgin.
Yeah, he's a virgin.
He's never been with anybody.
Yeah.
And she's gonna kill him.
Basically, she goes into her council and grabs like a new knife, and she had like a lot of knives in her dash there. I mean, Jesus, she's throwing away knives willy-nilly.
They did mention that she's killed. Well, earlier in it, she just like there's a bum harassing her on the street, and she just turns around and stabs her in the neck in broad daylight.
There's no cops around. There's no one said, "Oh my God!"
No rhyme.
I started to enjoy it because I'm like, this movie is kind of winking a little bit. Like I felt like it was slightly aware of how bad it was at that point, and I was like, I'm starting to enjoy this a little.
Well, and then she goes into this cul-de-sac, which ties into the first story, and she gets out of her car. She talks to like these two men that are tied into another story later on, which I'll say. But she meets the virgin guy, and she's like, "Oh, what do you like?" Or, "Oh, are your parents out of town?" He's like,
and Squid was like, "Yes, they are."
Sure, Rob. They lead up into the bedroom, and I believe he wanted to be tied up as well, and
tied up and blindfolded.
Yeah, blindfolded. And she kind of teases him, and that's when she pulls out the knife, and she gets kinky with it. And
women with knives, you say?
Yeah,
steamy,
right? And she starts kind of poking with him pretty hard, and he's like, "Ow, what are you doing?" And that's when she goes for the grand finale and just starts repeatedly stabbing him in the chest.
The same exact spot too, because they couldn't afford to stab, in a
different
spot.
And you could really tell, like they were stabbing into like a dummy tube.
And what part did you climax at?
The third
Neither, okay?
Squid likes his horror, bloody, and porny.
Right. Alright. So, how the movie ends is the dead virgin comes back to life because he's like some kind of vampire creature
he looks like Baraka from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm gonna. What the hell is he? I didn't look it up to find out what he was.
He's supposed to be like a concubine. What is he?
No, he's a vampire.
He's a vampire.
A vampire concubine?
Not kidding. He legitimately looks. He has Baraka mouth. Like he's got big teeth. He's got like
teeth.
He's got an extra wide mouth. It's kind of like a Joker smile, huge.
Like Blade 2 status.
Oh man, I can't remember what they look like in Blade 2.
Blade 2, they go, rah! It's like the mandible, retractable mandible thing.
Not a regular mouse.
Like Predator status.
No,
not Predator status.
Baraka. Mortal Kombat.
Okay, I got the visual.
Baraka.
I was just helping our listeners out there, visualize a little
Watch
better.
The 1995 classic Mortal Kombat. And then, wait, is Baraka in the first one?
No, he is not.
He's in the second one. Okay, so that's the 1997 classic Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
God, don't say classic. Don't use that word too loosely.
You're welcome.
It's
You're
from
welcome.
the 90s, okay? But alright, so the next one was the professor's wife. Now, this is where the two gentlemen I mentioned in Colco come in from. They are going to the professor's house, which ties into the first one. It is the same professor. Now, he is meeting with two former students. They're getting ready for the professor's wedding. Nobody at the university knows who he's marrying. They think that this is an elaborate hoax. And the two former students actually get to meet his fiance. Now, this lady, I kid you not, I thought was an android. I thought I agreed with what these college students said. The professor perfected AI, or he actually made a Frankenstein's bride.
Yeah, because the professor's like in his late 60s, early 70s.
I'd say 70s.
And then she's, early 20s or so, and she's a young lady. She's very attractive. So she's definitely, quote, out of his league, unquote. But so they think that he created an android. This one had some really fun, flashback segments in it that were just so zany and dumb.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed them.
Like when they were talking about his pranks and all that.
Yeah, there's one
egg salad sandwich.
Yeah, the exploding egg salad sandwich. And there's one where he's like, young people, don't forget to drive safe. And then he cartoonishly pulls out a little RC car thing and throws the antenna out, and he starts driving the car for them, and you just hear it skirt, 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 and it crashes. And then he just looks around and runs in the house.
Yeah,
this one was kind of fun. I enjoyed this one.
Wasn't there an exploding toilet too? Or no, it was the
egg salad sandwiches. Exploded, and then there was a robot rattlesnake.
Yeah,
and the guy was like, "Well, it wasn't real," and he's like, "Its bite sure was real."
Yeah, it still hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
But the professor goes off to pick up the wedding cake, and his fiance's kind of bit of a blonde, really spacey, and kind of seemed like she was a robot. So it had this former students believing that she was a robot, so they decide they're going to figure out how she works, and they just straight up murder this lady.
It's great.
I mean, it's kind of funny because you're like, holy shit, they're actually doing it.
Yeah.
And blood spurting around everywhere.
Yeah, the one guy turns to the other, and he's like, I know how to solve this, and then he walks into the kitchen, he grabs something heavy and just hits her, and then it cuts to them sawing her into pieces and being like, wow, this hand is so lifelike.
And her thigh, wow.
It's so lifelike.
I'll have to go back and watch this
and
one.
And he's stroking it and rubbing it. He's like, oh, it feels so soft. And then he cuts off her head and he's like, check out the brain. It looks so real.
And then you feel the brain like, wow, what is this? We got veins and everything in there. I'm like, oh my god, they straight up murdered them. And right at that point, the professor comes home. They realize that she was not a robot, that she was actually human.
They find a very convenient scrapbook with their entire life history in there, and how she was a Russian college student, and she's a mail order bride.
Yep.
And she's looking for an older man who's got a great sense of humor. That's how the pranks come in.
And after that, they start hiding body parts. I think they even put her head and brain into the oven.
Yeah, it's so Looney Tunes cartoonish. It's pretty fun that they're scrambling around the house, spraying, cleaning the walls, throwing the rug outside.
Which surprised me how fast they were able to clean it up in 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, at that point I was like, this movie is winking at us. It's clearly
zany comedy.
Yeah, it's driving into the comedy, because the professor the whole time he's just standing in the kitchen going, Kathy, and then the two students' names I forget, Ben and Jimmy or whatever. He's just like, Kathy, Ben, Jimmy, where are you? Just looking left and right, not moving at all, not searching the house. Yeah.
And then after that we come to the haunted dog. Now, this one starts off with a misery-soaked doctor who's on a 30-day
AKA Frankenweenie.
Basically. serving a 30-day court order at a free clinic.
Don't even have to see it to know that.
Oh, he's probably the most rudest doctor that's there, and they did the really cliche aspect of the doctor having a drug problem because he's popping pills willy-nilly, getting through the day, mindlessly being rude to people, writing them like ridiculous prescriptions.
Here's a 21-day prescription for marijuana.
Yeah, and here's a prescription for like to make you look better for fat pills, I believe. And he just drones on, and he goes off to lunch, and he goes off to pick up a hot dog. He drops said hot dog and gives it to a homeless bum.
Yeah, because it's like covered in dirt.
Dirt and grit. He drops it, and he says, "Oh yeah, here you go. Here's a hot dog." And the bum chokes on said hot dog and dies right there in the street.
Yeah, and the doctor doesn't. He just walks away. He gets a new hot dog and bails.
No,
that's actually how the segment starts.
Oh,
it's
jeez.
Getting the bum killed. Yeah.
And from that point on, the doctor is haunted by the bum. He's like gurgling and holding his hand out, and the
Thanks for the ride, lady.
Honestly, I'm surprised he didn't say that.
Should have
hot dog, sir.
Should have had some homage to the original.
Hot dog, sir.
Yeah, thanks for the hot dog, sir. That would have been funny or clever at least a little bit.
Made somewhat of a connection to the old ones.
Yeah.
And at this point, he starts to not be able to sleep because he keeps getting haunted. He starts seeing the bomb everywhere. He's going to like orgies, and he sees the bomb, which ties the college student in from Call Girl into this last one. I'm thinking, boy, you just figured a way to tie everything together with a
very Halloween-ish. Not Halloween Michael Myers, Halloween as in the term of the mini stories, where they all relate to the one town and every single story has relations to the other one.
Yes. And
I'm sorry, is that Halloween or Trick or Treat? That's Trick or Treat. My fault. That's Trick or Treat.
But Trick or Treat did a lot better and darker and scarier.
Yeah, this movie's 0% scary. It has no style or like flair to it whatsoever.
Now, with this movie, they had a budget of...
It does end with the professor does get married to his bride. He figures out a way to Frankenstein her, which I thought was pretty cool.
He had a voodoo, he got a voodoo book off the street vendor, and the street vendor is the same guy that I got the radios and the TV remote off of. And he says, "Oh, I'll trade you this for the voodoo book." And the street vendor goes, "You'll need the chicken." You can't do without the chicken.
Okay, you should just do that on the street. I'm gonna record you doing that for something.
Yeah, just set up a stand and put them out there.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. But it had a budget of $3.5 million.
That's ridiculous.
Really, for that film?
For 3.5, and
I could have made that film for like maybe $1,200.
I said 1,000, but that's how it ends. The cinematography, I guess, really flat. Even it
was very amateur all around, from what I saw of it.
Yeah, the music, they used the same music for every single story, which really annoyed me the most because, okay, you guys could find other music to use, but you don't even.
No.
I think a lot of the money went to the fake blood and the fake body parts that they used.
Or maybe it was like a Ponzi scheme or like a smuggling scheme, you know what I mean? They're like, we spent $3.5 million on this one.
Maybe.
But it seemed like these actors got paid like $500 because the acting was so terrible.
It seemed really with no correlation to the original Creepshows. Like I said, it's like someone bought the rights for Creepshow and we're like, we're just going to make something kind of similar to it, but
the first
not as bad.
Was very campy intentionally. The second one I felt like was just kind of bad. This one was... At first, I thought it was doing that sci-fi thing, that sci-fi thing where it's like, oh, it's we're gonna be bad, so that way we're good, but then it's never bad. You know what I mean, like Sharknado and stuff. Where it's like when you try to make a bad movie, you just make a boring movie. But then this one does. I felt like after that first sketch, I did feel like the next three were moderately interesting.
I don't know. I just feel like if you're gonna call something in the franchise the third, at least be somewhat respectful to the originals.
No, they definitely just bought the name.
Yeah,
no, they did, and. They didn't want to, or as like how we were saying with the first two, they were horror. They wanted to try and do something different, and they tried to take the approach similar to Pulp Fiction, which all the stories kind of interlude into each other, which does make sense for Creepshow 3, and they tried to make it like how me and Mike said, too funny
done,
comedy.
Baby. It's been done.
It did. I mean, Pulp Fiction did it really well because Quentin Tarantino knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
it's not just that. It's being lazy about the story, though, lazy about the writing, you know? But go ahead, Mike, sorry.
Well, to that point, I would say that it just has these, like the Baraka guy who just comes out of nowhere. You're like, what is this element from? Or at least in the other two Creepshows, you're like, okay, there's a rubber oil monster. That's the whole segment, rubber oil monster. The other one is like, here's a prostitute killing people for 20 minutes, and now there's a Baraka vampire, and segment over. And you're like,
insert this to make it somehow make sense in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to have
work backwards. Yeah.
Like some of these things.
It's not a twist.
It is a twist. I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. To me, that's not a twist. A twist should be something totally like, you know,
logical to the plot.
Like Robb Stark getting murdered in season 3 of Game of Thrones. That was a twist.
Yeah, because he sows the seeds of that over the course of the season by breaking his alliances with allies.
And at first, you don't. If you're looking at one perspective of it all, you think everything's going willy nilly. But when you go back, especially and read it again and look at things, you're like, oh my God, I saw this coming a million miles away.
The phrase told him, hey, if you do this, we'll kill you.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
But that's going to be our special for Creepshow 3. All in all, I'm going to have to say they go in order. Yeah. Creepshow 1 is, I think, the best one, obviously. Creepshow 2 is just Creepshow 2. Creepshow 2 is just Creepshow 2. And Creepshow 3, I mean, besides you guys saying how much you guys semi-enjoyed it, I did not find it enjoyable at all.
I got to agree. It goes right in order. Creepshow 1, Creepshow 2, and then Creepshow 3. Honestly, I mean, they should chuck Creepshow 3 into the trash, even burn it, because that's what it was, just a flaming pile of trash.
I don't know, I like FDR, American Badass, and that movie's a big flaming pile of trash, too. So, I know trash. I mean, I've seen The Spirit, I've seen trash.
I've seen Spirit, too. Come on.
It's what, you like that movie?
I liked it. I said I've seen it.
Yeah,
okay. I was going to say, dude, what?
No,
you'd be stabbed right here.
Well, I'll go out on a limb and be the creep sheep, and I'll say I like 1 the most, then 3, then 2. I found 2 to at least be... 2 was just boring. Like, I found it just boring the whole way through, whereas, like, at least 3, I found it entertaining. I was like, this is really dumb, but at least it's kind of zany and kind of wacky and just, like, going overboard with it. I enjoyed 3 or a little more than 2.
So that has been Creepshow. Remember to listen, like, and subscribe to the Real Shark Podcast, and we will catch you on the flip side.